Hey everyone, I'm Kristen, the anxiety therapist, and today I want to share a technique from cognitive behavioral therapy. It's called the ABC model, and it really helps us to sort of reframe a situation that we have certain feelings or interpretations of that might not be super helpful and might make us experience some sort of distress. So, the ABC model, I want you to start by just kind of thinking about a recent event or situation that caused you an emotional reaction, and then progress through the following steps. So the A stands for the activating event. So this is the event that you're sort of conjuring up in your mind. What was the situation? Who did it involve? What happened? Where did it happen? When did it happen? So again, that's the A stands for activating event. Then the B stands for beliefs. So what is your belief about what happened, or why do you think it happened? So basically, you're looking at your interpretation or perception of the event. And that has a lot to do with how we feel about something. So this brings us to the C, the consequences. So think about how you feel. What emotions are you experiencing when or did you experience during this event or situation? And then what was the resulting behavior? So how did you act? How did you feel? And then how did you act? And was that something that worked for you? Did that feel like it was in alignment with who you want to be and the behavior you want to display and how you want to interact with others and how you want to feel? Chances are, if it was an adverse situation, then the consequences did not feel great. So that brings us to the next step, which is the disputation, or D. So we want to question the original thought or belief and ask ourselves, is it irrational or unhelpful in some way? So a lot of times we'll make assumptions, we'll sort of fill in the blanks with negative information if we don't have all of the information about a certain situation. And so we want to figure out, like, do we actually have to accept this as truth? And is there any evidence to support that belief or interpretation of the event? And chances are there's not. So that kind of brings us to the last step, step E, which stands for effective new belief and emotional consequence. So try to reframe the situation and think about what might be a new helpful or rational or self-enhancing belief that you could use to replace that original belief or interpretation of the situation. And then how does that new belief make you feel? So the idea is to sort of make that belief a little bit more neutral or more positive by sort of identifying where we have plugged in negative assumptions. And then we want to reframe that and have a new belief and a new emotional consequence. So I want to give you an example. I think we've probably all experienced something similar at some point in our lives because this is super common. But I was just talking with a client the other day, and she had a friend who was in town visiting family, and the intention was for them to get together at some point, and she felt like her friend was pretty unresponsive and just kind of blew her off. Okay, so the activating event would be that, her friend was unresponsive, and my client's belief was that this was a good friend of hers, so if she was in town visiting, that she would make time to see her, right? So the belief that resulted was she started to question herself and her friendship, and does this friend actually enjoy hanging out with me? Is she really blowing me off? If I were a priority, she would have responded. So these are all of the sort of negative beliefs and assumptions that were going through her head. And so the resulting emotions were obviously a lot of anxiety and sort of getting down on herself, kind of questioning who she is and how she is in friendships and whether she's actually likable. And then the resulting behavior was that she just felt kind of amped up all day, and was constantly waiting for this friend to respond so that she could sort of move on with her day and know what the plan was. So moving on to the D, the disputation, what we did was we sort of explored her thought process and identified if there were any assumptions being made, or if there was actual evidence for these thoughts that they were truthful. Does she have any evidence that her friend doesn't actually enjoy spending time with her, or any evidence that her friend was intentionally blowing her off? And really the answer was no. So the new belief and the emotional consequence, the part E, is that we identified that the friend, she was visiting family. She was very busy trying to get people to and from the airport. She was pregnant, so her memory was probably not the best. And she also was dealing with a toddler. So again, attention kind of going in multiple places all at once, and it's likely that she just wasn't sort of able to attend to texting my client back in the way that she felt she should have been. So ultimately, this can alleviate some of the negative belief systems. It's still a situation in which my client might want to have a conversation with her friend and let her know how it made her feel, just to keep those lines of communication open. But I think it's important to note that she's able to kind of explore her own beliefs about the situation and her own resulting emotions and behaviors, and sort of bring that level of anxiety down in the meantime. So this is a really effective thing to do for any situation in which you feel any sort of emotional distress. And yeah, just, the more you practice this, the more you really start to break those patterns of automatic emotional beliefs when a situation happens, and you get better at sort of reframing those things and seeing what's actually truthful and what might be more related to anxiety or sort of irrational types of thinking. So I hope you found this video helpful. Again, if you're interested in my workbook, which contains several more exercises, feel free to visit my website, and that's available for purchase. And I hope you have a good week. I'll see you next time.